I'm here to tell you how me as a retired entrepreneur joined the University of Melbourne and took the whole university through a journey to where we are now. It's not a typical founder story. This is how I, within the University of Melbourne, as an entrepreneur, taking a traditional university, it's #1 in Australia, and taking it through into translating and commercialising its humanities and social sciences research. So my background originally was I retired 3 years ago, and then I was invited back 1 year ago to come and join and undertake this role as the director of the HAS faculties, which is Humanities and Social Sciences of Education, Law, Arts, Commerce and Performing Arts. My background since I attended Anderson Business School at UCLA was very much involved in technology, both as an entrepreneur and as an investor, and also as a mentor to a number of, mainly in Australia, sports technologies companies and a few EdTech companies. So when I joined the MGSE, or the Melbourne Graduate School of Education, which sits around #5 in the world, they had this opportunity. They have a lot of IP, enormous amount of research, and had failed to commercialise. And they wanted me to come in and try and commercialise that for commercial and social returns. So 7 years of research, $8 million of Australian Research Council grants, $2 million kind of investments into their labs, a lot of early revenue and strong validation, and absolutely no direction on where to proceed. And put that into context, the MGSC, or the graduate school, had a great framework and IP foundations in evaluation and assessment software. It had industry partners like Cisco, Microsoft, Intel, UNESCO, many state and federal government education departments in Australia. And of course, it had been collaborating with a number of universities across the globe. It needed to develop its next generation of evaluation assessment software and its plug-and-play products. Secondly, we're also sitting on the major generation of global student population within the APEC region. So as you heard before, 90% of that is within Asia and North Africa. The Australian Melbourne University has some of the brightest people from that region. We have 6,200 alumni right across the Asia-Pacific region, and we needed to leverage that as well. This also gave an opportunity to start to develop within that new platform aspects of machine learning and micro-credentialising, which you heard a bit about today. And also it's a great opportunity to work with developing countries who want to leapfrog developing countries with new education models. Whoops, sorry about that. So the challenges I faced. I commenced at a short time frame, August of 2015, and I need to spin this out within 2 years. So I'm in 2017, so hopefully I can get there. I needed to identify the commercial potential of this through a 100-day audit. I needed to also overcome the university roadblocks, and I also had to ensure that I could align the commercial and academic interests of this university, which has been going for over 160 years and has got some enormous approval processes. So the first thing I undertook was a 100-day audit. When I got in there, I was able to look at the resources of the university, the IP, its capability, and a whole lot of other things to determine whether we could actually do any of this. I interviewed over 100 academics, administration and policy staff. I also interviewed people at Chancery, university staff, and state and federal government people. And then, of course, I had to get that approvals by the university processes. I also then adopted the Lean Launchpad methodology, which many of you should know as if you're involved in startups, which is developed by Steve Blank and Jerry Engels from Haas Business School, used by 240 universities to translate and commercialise their IP. I was fortunately enough to be educated and trained by these guys. And the MGSC had conducted hundreds of interviews with customers as well. I got my academics to go out and start talking to our potential customers. And that was on top of the 600,000 teachers and students in 80 countries who have been using our products in pilot projects. I also made sure that I engaged with our research labs every 3 weeks to ensure that they were following the methodology and gaining invaluable customer insights. Now, this is one of the big parts of any university. If you've worked in any large institution, in my particular case, I had a myriad of stakeholders to deal with. So once I determined that this product we had determined the products and customers across the APEC region wanted this, I had to bring about the whole of the university along with me in this journey. I had to align the interests of the University of Melbourne's commercial department, its chancery, the education faculty, the academics, the tech licensing officers, the lawyers, the finance people, all to bring them along and indicate there's a strong commercial sense of a really good opportunity here to establish a new company called Quill. And effectively, these are all the moving parts that any university person trying to translate or commercialise anything at any university of our standing around the world. So, here we are. We've got a solution. It's a next generation best practice pedagogy platform that evaluates, assesses and monitors student and teacher progression and growth and their capabilities. Some of our products do everything from measuring the gaps and misconceptions that math students may have. They also evaluate and assess middle school students' collaborative problem-solving skills in the 21st century across reading, numeracy and ICT for global citizenship. This project and that product has been developed after we worked with Cisco, Microsoft and Intel. We led the global project some 7 years ago in this particular area, and we're regarded as one of the great pioneers in this area. Our current suite of products have been used and validated by over 1 million students in 4 continents with strong early revenue. One minute. And finally, you can't do this unless you've got an A-grade team. The first thing we did as any startup is to get an A-grade team that can go to market. First thing you should always learn as an entrepreneur as well. So we've picked people who have rolled out worldwide ERP systems and education systems. We've also picked people who are some of the best academics in the world who have joined our board. And as well as that, we've got very strong advisory committee that has strong cross-border mergers and acquisitions. So what do we got to do? Over the next 3 to 5 years, we have to build an $80 to $100 million company on this new technology platform, which will support our business in multiple geographies and the technology platform. And it's hoped that this fundamental platform will be able to support a more educated and skilled world with opportunities for all. So that's our little story, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much. And I met my deadline.
So, thank you. Right, so just so I get a sense of the audience, who in the audience is a founder or an entrepreneur? Great. Who in the audience is an investor? A couple. And what does that make everybody else? So I can make this relevant and interesting to everybody. Sorry? Publisher. Yeah, we like you guys too. So, right, so I'm trying to make this ready for everybody. I'm actually going to tell you the story of Zzish. I thought it was supposed to be founder's story, and I've been raising money for the last 6 months. I'm tired of pitches. I'm just going to tell you the story, warts and all of Zzish, which I hope you're going to find interesting. So, I have a clicker here, I assume. So, yeah, I'm Charles Wiles, founder of Zzish, first Google product manager hired outside the United States, PhD in robotics and AI, does that not work? How do I get to the next slide? Okay, great. And about middle of 2012, I found myself sitting in the office in my last company, and I was super frustrated because I never got to participate in my kids' education. I'd leave home at 7:30 in the morning, commute into London, get home at 7:30 p.m. at night, and if I asked my son to practice times tables at the weekend, he'd argue with me for half an hour before he realized it was better to spend 10 minutes doing it so he'd get back to playing Minecraft and arguing with me for another half hour, right? So I was sitting there in the office, and I got a notification on my phone from my daughter to say it was my turn to play Song Pop. Now, most of you probably don't remember Song Pop, but it was one of the big first 2 mobile social games. The other one, of course, was Draw Something, which you all probably do remember. But Song Pop was just a simple quiz game, a music quiz game. It would play a piece of music, and you had to say the artist or the song title. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if I was sitting here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon playing a game of maths? or physics, or French, or history, or geography with my daughter and son at home? And wouldn't it be great if this app was actually diagnosing the learning gaps and then recommending other things for me to do so that I could address those learning gaps? And actually, hang on, this sounds like a lot of fun and really powerful. If we're doing this sitting in the office, why aren't they doing this in schools? And I started my research into the market. And what I realized was actually that really the state of educational applications at that time was really very poor. And actually, if you think about it, leading players in the field, something like Duolingo, they've had something like $83 million of funding. And although, of course, that's not all been spent on technology, probably tens of millions have. How do you compete if you're that small developer who's got this great new idea for an application with the leading players in the field who have got all that money and can invest that? And that's really the problem I wanted to solve. So I incorporated Zzish. That's our incorporation certificate. And built the first version of our product ourselves. It was really just a prototype, a demonstration application to show investors so that I could actually raise some money to do the real project. And I actually wrote this first application called Fax, coded it up in Android, put it actually into the Amazon Kindle App Store because I couldn't actually afford to buy 30 Kindles for the classroom, so I bought 6. They cost me about £200. And actually, we could have 5 kids playing on the same device. And a really cool thing, though, was at the time, we also had, on the electronic whiteboard, a fun gamified leaderboard. So this was back in 2013. And the great thing about it was the students loved it, the teachers loved it, but it allowed us to, A, get into TechStars and raise money. So we got into TechStars. We went through the TechStars program. And actually, I highly recommend anybody who's a founder or thinking of starting a venture to go into an accelerator or an incubator. The stats show that you are far more likely just simply to survive, let alone be a successful company, if you go for an accelerator. We loved it. It definitely accelerated it. When we started going into TechStars, there was 1 person in the company. By the time we finished, there are 7 of us. We launched Zzish version 1, which was a platform for developers to create amazing education applications. We built 6 modules. Samir and I worked through the night for 6 months to deliver it. Went out to all these developers, got lots and lots of interest. But how many developers do you think we actually got to plug in and launch in our system by the end of that year? Does anybody want to guess? Guess a number. 0. Absolutely right. Not 1 single developer actually plugged in. Right, after all that hard work and effort and sleepless nights, which still continue, but anyway, for different reasons. So what we did, like all good ventures, well, we didn't pivot, but we did zig, right? And if you've actually, one of Elon Musk's favorite quotes of mine is, you know where you're starting, you know where your destination is, but unfortunately it's not a straight line to get there. You have to zig and zag. So what we decided to do was build our own killer app and actually go out and build up the teacher side of our market, right? And the brilliant thing about that is the vision was then we could offer developers not just great technology they can plug into for free, but we'd also give them global distribution and a monetization channel, which they didn't have either. In fact, talking to developers, they actually, they like the technology, but actually the biggest problem, they already got an application in the market. Their biggest problem was, how do I get this in front of teachers? And even when you get in front of teachers, how do I actually make money from it? So we decided to solve all 3 of those problems. And we started by building Quizlies, and we got it out into the market. Now, we actually built the original proof of concept for the Bet Show in 2015 and launched the proper full version in September 2015 at the start of the school year. And it instantly went to the top of the rankings for new apps on EdSurge. And that was just absolutely a fantastically great feeling for us to know that we'd actually done something that teachers like, because we had no teachers on the team. It just shows that there's a lot of people saying that you always have to have a teacher on the team. We were just geeks, techie geeks. We thought we had an idea. We launched it, and teachers loved it. Now, actually, at the heart of our platform now is something very, very simple, teacher dashboards. We like to think, and you can't prove it, that we've got some of the world's best teacher dashboards. And the reason why we think that is because actually for us, they're the most important thing. For most developers who have done teacher dashboards, it's always been something they've had to do to satisfy the teachers who are using their product. For us, it's right at the heart of our system. And we kind of reinvented it. We said, actually, let's not think of these as teacher dashboards. Let's think of these as a virtual teaching assistant. Let's try and answer 3 questions as quickly as possible for teachers. Who needs help? What do they need help with? And how you can help them. So we actually titled our first screen, Who Needs Help? And all we do is we bucket the students into 3 or 4 categories based on what they're doing right now in the classroom. And the great thing about this is right now in the classroom. It's not something you set for homework. It's not something you look at a week later and go and give to the student. It's right there as they're doing it. It all comes up in real time. We use push APIs to push it out to the teacher dashboards so that the teacher can walk over to that student while the other kids are still doing it and give them help right there and then. Then in October, we suddenly found that we were getting thousands of teachers signing up in Bahrain. We had no idea why. We sort of reached out to them and asked why, and they said, well, it's because the Ministry of Education has recommended your product. We thought, that's pretty cool, right? And actually, we then thought, why don't we reach out to some other MOEs and see what they think of our products? And the result is that today, we have 80,000 teachers around the world from 110 different countries. We're in discussions with 4 MOEs. We've actually sold our product to 6 different countries. None of this was really by design. It just kind of happened. And then I was at South by Edu in February, and I was actually just starting a conversation with 2 investors who I was keen to impress. And this woman walks up to me. It was actually Tammy, not Carolina. She walks up to me and she goes, are you Zzish? I was a little bit worried because I'm talking to these 2 investors. You know, what's she going to say? And I go, yes. She goes, Zzish? I go, yes. She goes, oh my God, we love you guys! You know, and she was just so effervescent about how she was amazed that we were even there. And actually, I had no idea how passionate some of our users were. I mean, we do talk to teachers all the time. They, you know, but I had no idea how passionate they were. And we took them out to lunch the next day, and just the good news just kept following. So it wasn't until right at the end where they told us, oh, by the way, your software is improving our standardized test scores by 8 to 10% across the board. So 10% for the less able students, 8% for the more able students, right? And they had never seen any improvements like this in their 20 years of teaching. So it's absolutely phenomenal. Really made me feel good. But what made me feel particularly good is you said, not only that, you've breathed new life into my teaching career. I'm enjoying teaching again. Right? And that is just, you know, that so far has really been the highlight of my whole journey. We've just closed £1.5 million of funding. It was a 6-month journey. We actually raised on Crowdcube, so there may even be investors in the audience that I don't even know. It's actually gone really, really well. We're starting to build some real momentum, and it's starting to look very exciting. So this money is allowing us to double our engineering team, double our sales team, and really start to go to the next level. And actually, the next level really is to go to the whole virtual teaching assistant. And there's a lot of stuff we still need to do before we start using AI algorithms, but we're now starting to get to that point where we can really have that really great data set that we can start to properly solve that. And of course, the goal is here that we can identify exactly what student needs help when, exactly what their problem is, and then recommend exactly the right learning resource, ideally some educational application to address that. And the founder's job of raising money is never done, so although we've just closed, the next part starts. I'm about to start going out and raise our next £5 million round. So if there are any investors who want to write big checks in the audience, then do come and see me afterwards. But I'm not going to pitch to you because I've been doing enough of that for the last 6 months. Thank you very much.
Hello, hi. My name is Filippo Jakob. Thank you for being here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Primo Toys. And what we do is we create educational toys for early years learning. The way that we consider toys is we look at them as tools to develop minds rather than just tools for entertainment. And we really wanted our toys to introduce children to 21st century skills. What we consider 21st century skills are skills that they need to thrive in a digital world, where technology has changed the way in which we do something. And I'll show you how a little bit in a second. So I guess I'll start with the story. In 2012 and 2013, I was your typical millennial sort of person. I'd already been through 3 jobs. I was freelancing in design and technology. I studied law for no apparent reason, and I knew 2 things then. I knew that I didn't want to work for anybody else, and the second thing I knew is that I was going to have a son that year, and I was going to be a parent. And I'd always enjoyed design and technology, and I was sort of moving around that space, just not really knowing what to do. And I got an idea that maybe I could build a toy company, an educational toy company, one that was created toys that were open-ended for girls and boys to bridge the gender gap, toys that could be global, and toys that introduced these new 21st century skills that were toys created with a difference. There were 3 main problems. So the first thing is that I was by myself. And the second problem was I didn't have any money, and the third problem was that I'd never designed a toy before. I had no idea how to go about sort of pursuing this really lofty dream of creating the best toy company in the world. And I was looking around for inspiration on the internet, a month or so went by, and I found that a childhood friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to for 10 years had pursued a career in design in the meantime. And we reconnected, and in his brilliant portfolio, he was working for Arduino at the time with toys. And so one became two, and two became a company, and we set off to create Primo toys. And the first product that we created is a tangible programming interface for children. Which turns computer programming, which is normally something that happens on a screen with a keyboard, with text, into something completely tangible, which you'll see how in a second. But the reason why is because we kind of understood that programming was something extremely important as one of these 21st century skills that we think should be learned alongside reading or arithmetic, for example, but it wasn't at the time. And actually, the only way that we introduce programming right now to children is through devices that maybe interact with physical products, but it's not really a physical experience that sort of takes into account the developmental milestones that a 3 to 6 year old has to go through. And we thought, what if we could turn programming into something completely tangible? What if we could turn playing with something like blocks or shape sorters into a programming experience? And what we ended up doing is merge Logo Turtle programming, if any of you in the audience knows what that is, with Montessori hands-on learning. And the result, fast forward 3 years later, 3 years of development, we created the Cubetto playset. So the way that it really works is that you have this robot called Cubetto, which is made of hardware and wood, and you can send them on an adventure on top of a map. But the way that you do that is by creating programs using the blocks. And each block represents an instruction, which you can compile into an algorithm, and you can send the robot on its destination, on his way. And without knowing, the blocks look and feel and play like a toy, but they're actually a scalable procedural programming language, which is the difference between just creating a toy and a technology for a child. You can compile the blocks, and by compiling them, you're actually playing and exercising curriculum map programming concepts. You learn about the queue, you learn about functions. We have a function line. You learn about debugging, you learn about algorithms, and you learn all of the other soft skills that you sort of need to when you're playing at that age, which is great, and it's a very collaborative experience. You also have these maps and these stories and all of this world of content that goes around the playset that make the experience enjoyable, because a toy is only as good as the experiences and memories that it creates for children. If you play and you have a great memory and a great experience, then that play experience is likely to spark a lifelong interest, for example. Last year, I believe it was around this time, we just completed our Kickstarter campaign. It took us 3 years to develop a product. We were pretty much almost bankrupt, and then we managed to launch the product. And we raised almost $1.6 million on Kickstarter in just under a month. We were only looking for 100 grand, so this was a great experience, and we became the most crowd-funded educational technology invention in Kickstarter's history. But since then, things kind of took off. We started selling the product in 96 countries. We won some great educational technology awards. We won some great design awards. The product was recognized by the MoMA in New York City. We toured it at MIT. And we started opening up little hubs in Japan and Korea where demand was really soaring. And sort of that was the campaign that sort of set us off on our way. And this slide should be updated. We've sold more than 40,000 units at this point, and we've delivered more than 20,000 units as well. But we now have 42 people that work in a factory in China through our partners that build Cubettos constantly and just send them out every week. And we've in the calendar year of 2016, we did about just over $4 million worth of business, which we're looking to double this year as well. So we're not a huge company, but I think we're on our way, and we work extremely hard to try and grow organically and naturally just through sales. This year already, this is also should have been updated. But by the time this was created, in Q1, we'd already done $2 million worth of sales for 2017, and that number has also gone up. And we've established a global distribution network. We have fulfillment hubs all over the world. As I said, we have a small office in Japan, one in Korea, and in the countries that we're not in ourselves with a small presence, we have some really, really great distribution partners that can do nationwide distribution for us. I think this graph sort of kind of tells our story a little bit better of how we grew year in, year out, something we're quite proud of, obviously. And when we look at the business that we're in, or the industry that we're in, it's an industry that's growing exponentially by an order of magnitude every year. A STEM toy is not a toy. A STEM toy is not just an educational resource. It's its own little sub-industry that's growing extremely rapidly. And we've managed to build an amazing community up to this point throughout our journey. We were the first movers in this very early learning, no screens coding, with this early learning screens coding proposition. And we built a great team. That's me, and that's Valeria, who's sitting in the audience as well. And we've come from all walks of life, all kinds of countries. We're multidisciplinary, multilingual, multinational, and we like it that way, obviously. And what's up for us next? We're actually going to open a Series A round because one of the things that growing organically doesn't allow you to do is do trades with big accounts and with big stores and big chains, which now we can. But we perhaps need more working capital to make happen. And we would also like to consolidate our business in Asia, as well as in Europe. And we also have new products that we want to bring to market. We've worked extremely hard on a single product to sort of improve our processes and prove our ability to execute on one product launch and then growth. And we would like to repeat that again for all of the exciting products that we have in our pipeline. So if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're an investor, if you're an entrepreneur and want to ask me more questions as well, which is what this presentation is all about, you can come and talk to me or you can join us. And something else that we've done recently, as the last thing, I promise, we actually launched 2 new maps for the Cubetto playset. And in 3.3 hours, we pre-sold more than 100 grand worth of just maps. And we hadn't done that with the launch of our Cubetto in 17 hours last year when we launched it. So we're now building out the ecosystem that lives around the product that we have with these new maps and these new stories that children, parents, and educators can engage with. Thank you.